Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. Background: in September 2022, I started working for a massive American company in the energy sector, stationed at one of their plants in Europe. This facility specialized in assessing and refurbishing parts from gas turbines. Each component would cost thousands to manufacture new and could last over a decade. However, reworking them was significantly cheaper, costing only a quarter of the production cost, and extended their lifespan by another 8-10 years with regular inspections. Customers preferred this option as they paid half or three-quarters of the price for a new part, saving substantial amounts. With gas turbines containing thousands of pieces, each rework project was worth millions, making it a lucrative business for the company with minimal competition. Over time, this unchallenged income stream bred complacency within the facility's management. As long as workers followed established processes, revenue kept pouring in regardless of the office's efforts or lack thereof. The setup. I was hired as part of the quality control team to operate a 3D computer-managed measuring machine. Gas turbine components endure extreme heat and stress, causing deformation over time. Precise measurements were crucial to identify which sections required reworking or if a part was too warped for further use. Operating the machine was straightforward: clamp the piece, load the correct model, and initiate the program. It would generate text, Excel, and PDF reports. The components, usually rotary blades, arrived in sets of 24, 216 pieces depending on size. After measuring each set, I had to compile the reports into a single Excel file using a somewhat complex method, which I mastered within a week. This machine was indispensable, running 2 to 3 shifts daily, 6 days a week, with 80% of the reworked pieces requiring at least 2 measurement cycles. While anyone with technical expertise could operate the machine, truly understanding its inner workings was a different matter altogether. When I joined, only 3 employees, along with a technician named Vlad, possessed in-depth knowledge of the machine. Vlad could fix codes or reprogram 3D models if issues arose, but being the sole technician for the entire facility, his time was limited and billable to each department, discouraging frequent call-outs. Among the 3 knowledgeable employees, Derek stood out. A seasoned veteran, he knew every nook and cranny of the machine. Although a regular worker, Derek was the go-to person when problems occurred. He had a short temper and a blunt manner of speaking, but was honest, open, and fair. I tend to be reserved, brutally honest, and overly professional at times. If colleagues share my principles of honesty, fairness, and accountability, we get along well. However, with less trustworthy individuals, I can become cold and distant, a flaw I acknowledge. Despite occasional heated arguments, Derek and I developed an excellent rapport. Unknown to others, Derek had accumulated an immense backlog of vacation days and overtime, allowing him to retire 2 years early at 63. He decided to groom me as his successor, teaching me every detail about the measuring machine, from maintenance to troubleshooting and its inner workings. Derek was a perfectionist, a quality I appreciated. The biggest issue at the facility was the prevalence of cliques and circles. If you belonged to the right group, you were untouchable, and your achievements were credited to others. If not, you became a convenient scapegoat. I didn't concern myself with these dynamics, as I was a stickler for rules and protocols. With a well-paying job but a grueling commute, I aimed to work there as long as possible, earn a decent living, and eventually move on. There was a 4th employee, Ivan, who operated the machine solely because it was the most comfortable job available. He often worked the night shift for the extra pay or the late shift, while I preferred the early morning shift, allowing me to leave by 3 p.m. Ivan was, well, let's just say he lacked intellectual prowess. He was lazy, rude, and arrogant, secure in his untouchable status thanks to his brother's best friend being the boss of the entire assessment department. The actual story. About 6 months after I started, the first incident with the measuring machine occurred. Company protocol dictated that rotary blades must be sorted numerically by their serial and set numbers for efficient processing. Occasionally, an unsorted order would arrive at the machine, requiring us to organize the pieces before measurement. Since we had to handle each blade individually, it wasn't a significant issue, just mildly annoying. Ivan never completed a set if he could avoid it, leaving 1 or 2 blades unmeasured. Even when starting a new set, he wouldn't compile the reports into a single Excel file. I doubt he knew how. One morning I arrived to find 3 blades left from the previous set, with the pallets in complete disarray despite being measured. Ivan had worked the late shift the day before and would return for the same shift that day, so I expected to see him briefly during the shift change. This meant I had to sort the pallets while simultaneously operating the machine with the next order to avoid delays, as the machine was a bottleneck in the facility. Usually this was a manageable task. The blades weighed no more than 22 kilograms, 48 pounds, and I had 14 minutes between measurement cycles to swap them out. However, sorting the previous order took me 2 hours of sweaty labor while running the machine nearby, leaving me somewhat annoyed. When Ivan arrived in the afternoon, I politely inquired why he hadn't sorted that particular order. He responded rudely, stating he wouldn't do it. Baffled, I asked if he was aware that sorting was mandatory. He curtly replied that he wouldn't discuss it further. Outright refusing to address an issue? Unacceptable. I informed him that if he didn't want to talk about it, I would have to raise the matter with my boss. He smugly told me to go ahead. And so I did, asking my boss if there had been a policy change regarding sorting, as I thought it was still required. This escalated into a 4-way discussion with my boss, Ivan, and his brother Boris, the head of the assessment department. Boris was displeased, and my boss seemed embarrassed, as it was clear I was in the right, but neither wanted to admit Ivan had done anything wrong. Maintaining my usual cold, professional demeanor, I responded with precise, polite language. The meeting ended inconclusively, with a vague request to sort the pallets if they arrived unsorted. Ivan shrugged, making it evident he didn't care. This scenario repeated 3 more times, but Ivan managed to avoid sorting entirely. All right then, strike 1, 3. 6 weeks later, the second incident occurred. Every morning I would maintain the machine as Derek had taught me, cleaning everything and applying a special lubricant to the stone tread the machine's arch ran along. One morning I switched the machine to manual mode for maintenance and heard a grinding noise as soon as I moved the arch. I immediately stopped the machine and inspected the tread, finding a deep crater about 2-3 centimeters, an inch, wide and deep, causing the air cushion to lose pressure and the arch to grind against the stone surface. There were also scratches along the entire tread length, indicating the machine had been running with this crater for some time. I promptly shut down the machine, informed Vlad and my boss about the severe issue, and documented the damage with time-stamped photos out of habit. The machine was taken out of commission for over a month to repair the arch, rework the entire stone tread, and recalibrate. Coincidentally, Ivan had worked the shift before me, and the crater resembled a blade corner being dropped onto the tread. Of course, he denied any wrongdoing or noticing any scratches or grinding noises during his shift. He even tried to blame me, but I had reported the issue minutes into my shift, with the last blade he measured still in the machine. Once again, it was clear who had messed up, but no one uttered a harsh word to him. While the machine was being repaired, I was assigned to the pre-assessment team, where I made friends who would serve as my informants later on. Strike 2-3. After a month of repairs, we had accumulated a massive backlog, leaving the downstream department struggling to find work that didn't require measurements. The machine was supposed to run 3 shifts, but Derek had left for his 2-year vacation during the repairs, and the other 2 knowledgeable employees had found better jobs. That left only Ivan and me, with me working considerable overtime for the extra pay. Setting aside the issues, the hourly rate was quite decent. One morning, I noticed something odd. An order I had started the previous afternoon remained unfinished, with only 2 blades left. Each measurement report included a timestamp, and upon inspection, I discovered gaps of 10, 15 minutes, some even half an hour between Ivan's reports from the night shift. The measurement cycle took only 3 minutes plus 1 minute to swap blades. Ivan was still around after his night shift, so I asked if he had encountered any trouble with the machine. He snapped at me, claiming everything had been fine. I inquired further, explaining the inconsistent timestamps with no apparent error messages. He glanced at the timestamps, looked back at me, shrugged, and left. That would have been the end of it, but the following Monday presented an even stranger situation. For once I hadn't worked on Saturday, so Ivan had handled the last 3 shifts alone. When I arrived, I performed the usual maintenance and cleaning, intending to check his progress. 4 orders had been processed since my last shift, so I expected to compile the reports as usual. However, there were none. I searched for the order numbers, checked the machine protocol, but found no measurement reports at all, despite the machine running continuously over the weekend without shutdown or restart. I called in Vlad, as missing reports for 4 orders was a significant issue. According to protocol, I also informed my boss about the technical issues halting the machine. Vlad and my boss joined me in the measuring room, and we searched for the problem. Eventually, we realized someone had disabled the machine's output, likely to avoid leaving timestamps. This caused another uproar, as all 4 orders had to be remeasured with proper reports, further straining the production lines already struggling with the backlog. Once more, it was evident who had messed up, and finally, Freddie, the head of the entire assessment department, had had enough, but not with Ivan. The malicious compliance. That same afternoon, Freddie, donning an expensive suit, tie, and polished shoes, stormed into the measuring room and confronted me. As I sat compiling the remeasured first order, he stood before me, blocking my exit. Glaring down at me, he snapped that he was sick and tired of me bullying my coworker. He handed me a termination letter bearing his signature and informed me I had 2 options: promise to improve, apologize to Ivan, and admit fault, or be fired immediately. Having endured bullying and terror during childhood taught me to remain level-headed under stress. Instead of arguing or pointing out the illegality of his actions, I calmly took the letter and read it, nodding a few times. Interpreting my nods as compliance with his typical smug manner, he stated he expected my written apology before 2 p.m., the time when all bosses left for the day. As he turned and marched out with a triumphant grin, he left me with the signed termination letter. Amusingly, when both parties agree, a contract can be terminated immediately, with only the obligation to pay for hours already worked, which goes directly through human resources via electronic timestamps. I had 2 hours until his deadline, which I spent meticulously cleaning my workspace, backing up my work laptop, per protocol, and thoroughly wiping the hard drive. I uploaded the backup to the designated server with proper naming and organization. However, the backup data server was marked as unsearchable to prevent cluttering search results, as the same part types and material numbers were repeated. If you knew the rules and where to look, you could find the data within 20 seconds. If not, good luck sifting through those 10 terabytes of data. I made a copy of the signed termination letter and emailed it to myself, allowed under company policies, placed the original back in the envelope, gathered my belongings, and headed to the office with the envelope in hand. Freddie's smug smile quickly turned to confusion when he saw me carrying my laptop and work phone. I handed him the envelope, offered a polite nod, and turned to leave. He shouted, asking where I was going while still holding the envelope. "You terminated my contract," I stated in a calm, calculated tone, attempting to sound lawyerly since I knew he disliked my professional demeanor. "According to the rules, I must return all company-issued equipment before leaving. Exception per paragraph B, safety shoes and glasses. I bid you a good day, Mr. Freddie." Then I proceeded to my direct boss's desk and piled my belongings there. My boss, though smug, wasn't entirely foolish. His eyes widened as he realized I was the only person left who knew how to properly maintain and operate the measuring machine. With the existing backlog already forcing other departments to implement short-time work, he was momentarily speechless before rushing to Freddie's office to verify the termination letter. Meanwhile, I changed clothes in the locker room, approached the security guards, and requested a full inspection of my person and backpack, as per regulations for terminated employees. Though baffled by my request, the guards complied, thoroughly searching me and providing written confirmation that I possessed no company property. My now former boss tried calling me repeatedly during my commute home, but I disliked taking calls on public transport, so I muted the calls and continued reading until I arrived. At 4 p.m., well past his regular departure time, I finally answered. He attempted to convince me that I needed this job and that we could sort everything out. My reply: "I'll have a new job within a week. You'll need at least a month to train someone new on the machine. If you even have anyone capable of training someone. Here's the deal. Give me a solid contract with triple the pay, and I'll come back, plus a written apology from Freddie, and I want to work in peace." He deemed my demands completely unreasonable, to which I responded, "Let me get this straight. 3 times I discovered major issues. 3 times you tried to blame me, and then you literally tried to humiliate and fire me. And you want me to be reasonable? Well, I guess it would be reasonable to ignore you then. Good luck. I hung up, blocked his number, and any other numbers he might use to contact me later. The aftermath. As mentioned earlier, I had maintained connections within the company, so I have a good idea of what transpired afterward. The facility suddenly found its most sensitive bottleneck severely constricted and then completely clogged. Without proper maintenance or cleaning, the precision measuring machine quickly deteriorated. Vlad was called in multiple times daily to fix issues that I or Derek had previously resolved in minutes, creating a backlog for him elsewhere. Departments ran out of work, and to avoid blame for missed deadlines, the issue escalated higher and higher until it reached the national CEO's desk, the company's highest authority on this side of the Atlantic. This prompted the arrival of the proverbial kill squad, a group of stern-faced individuals in tight suits, with no sense of humor and cold eyes, tasked with finding someone to blame. Rumor had it that even a prosecutor from the USA joined them. A month later, the company contacted me, not for a job interview, but to request my statement regarding the entire affair. Although not a legal matter and they couldn't compel me, I happily complied, providing my account as accurately as possible and signing a statement affirming its truthfulness. They thanked me and apologized for their inability to compensate me due to legal reasons, which I understood, and I returned home. Ivan was fired for careless negligence, and his brother Boris was immediately dismissed as well. My boss lost his position for mismanagement alongside Boris. However, Freddie faced more severe consequences, not only termination but also legal proceedings in the US. Given the ludicrous nature of their justice system and his designation as a scapegoat by one of the world's largest companies, I wouldn't be surprised if he had to tread carefully in the showers for a while. The entire facility operated at a significant loss that year due to numerous missed contract deadlines, incurring daily penalties in the tens of thousands. My inside sources soon sought new employment elsewhere, despite having worked at the company for over 20 years in one case. The last I heard, the company had to contract the measuring machine's manufacturer to train new employees on proper operation. Those instructors certainly didn't come cheap, likely commanding fees several multiples higher than my requested triple pay. Oh, and I found a new job within a day. Fired on Monday, interviewed on Tuesday, worked a trial day on Thursday, and was asked when I could start, which was the following Monday. I now do manual measurements in an incoming quality control department. The boss is fantastic, the team is friendly, and my commute is only 18 minutes by electric scooter. 9 months in, I'm already the de facto team leader for first sample inspections, and best of all, I'm appreciated for my work. The next one is an entitled people story. Parking has always been a nightmare in my neighborhood. I live in a crowded part of the city where every house is smashed up next to each other, and there's barely enough room to walk down the sidewalks, let alone find a spot to park your car. Most people end up parking a block or two away from their house and hoofing it home. Not exactly ideal, but it's the reality here. That's why I was so thrilled when I moved into my new place last year. It came with an honest-to-God parking spot. A rare luxury in this packed urban jungle. The little driveway was tucked neatly beside the house, barely big enough for one compact car. But hey, it was mine. No more looping around the streets for 30 minutes trying to find parking after a long day of work. I could just coast right into my spot and be home. It was perfect. Or so I thought. It didn't take long for the neighbor from hell to rear his ugly head. The day after I moved in, I came home to find a shiny BMW parked smack dab in the middle of my spot. This obnoxious sporty number was crammed in there diagonally, making it impossible for me to get my car in. I knocked on the neighbor's door, ready to politely explain the situation. A grumpy, unshaven guy in his 30s answered. Let's call him Brad. Hey man, I think you might have accidentally parked in my spot, I said calmly. I know it's an easy mistake to make, but if you could just move your car, I'd really appreciate it. Brad scowled at me. Your spot? As far as I can tell, this is street parking, which means first come, first served. He sneered. I shook my head. No, this is actually part of my property that comes with the house. See, it lines right up with my front door, I explained patiently, pointing it out. Yeah, well, I live here too, and I need a place to park, Brad shrugged. You'll just have to find somewhere else. And with that, he slammed the door in my face. I stood there stunned for a minute. What a jerk. But fine, I figured maybe he truly didn't realize it was a private spot. I'd give him the benefit of the doubt. Just this once. From then on, it became a daily battle. I'd come home to find Brad's shiny BMW in my spot. I'd knock on his door and be met with more attitude and dismissal. Seriously? Again? I'd say exasperatedly. Brad would give me a smug look. Like I told you, first come first served, buddy. No amount of explaining would get through to this guy. It was like talking to a brick wall. A really obnoxious brick wall. I started coming home earlier, hoping to beat him to the spot. But somehow magically Brad's car would already be there. It was infuriating. This was my spot, linked to my house that I paid for with my hard-earned money. And this douche-cano kept stealing it every day. Enough was enough. It was time to take action. I decided to call a towing company. Under city parking laws, private property owners had every right to get unauthorized vehicles towed off their premises. I explained the situation and made sure to send them documentation proving my ownership of the parking space. The towing company was happy to help. For a reasonable fee, of course. The next evening, I hurried home, excited to finally put my plan into action. And sure enough, there was the BMW taking up my spot once again. I casually pulled up behind Brad's car, blocking him in while I made the call to the towing company. Within 10 minutes, the truck arrived and the driver hooked up the BMW to tow it away. Right on cue, Brad came marching out of his house, face purple with rage. "What the hell, man?" he shouted when he saw his precious car getting towed. "You can't just do that," I waved the documentation in his face. "Actually, I can. This is private property and you've been parking here illegally for weeks. Consider this a warning." Brad's eyes nearly popped out of his head. "You'll be hearing from my lawyer," he spat out. I shrugged. "Go right ahead. I'm happy to explain the situation to any judge." He shook his head in disbelief as his BMW got dragged away, tires screeching in protest. I won't lie, it felt pretty damn good watching it finally leave my spot. Justice served. Brad avoided me after that. I think he finally got the message. But sure enough, a week later, I got an angry letter from a lawyer. Brad was threatening to sue me for the trauma of getting his car towed and the fees he incurred. He claimed I had no right to that spot and that it was public property where anyone could park. I met with my own lawyer who assured me this was an easy case to win. We had all the documentation, title records, city bylaws, everything. We sent Brad's lawyer a polite but firm response explaining that this was, in fact, private property that came with my house. We even included references to the specific city statutes around parking and towing. Brad's lawyer must have realized he didn't have a leg to stand on. A few days later, I got notice that they were dropping the lawsuit. Victory. These days, my parking spot remains blissfully free of BMWs. Brad avoids me like the plague. And if any other neighbors get tempted to steal my coveted parking real estate, well, they now know I'm not afraid to call in reinforcements. My trusty towing company is on speed dial. So the moral of the story? Don't mess with a man and his rightfully owned parking space. We take that stuff seriously around here, especially when parking is like searching for a unicorn in this jam-packed city. This little slice of pavement is my hard-won oasis amid the urban jungle, and no obtrusive neighbors are going to take that away from me. The next one is a petty revenge story. It's the weekend. It's going to be a slow day at work, and it's me and 2 other employees. When the manager is not on shift, I am the acting manager. I wasn't scheduled until 8 a.m. Both other employees were scheduled at 6 a.m. I have no idea why I was scheduled so late since 1, I'm the acting manager, and 2, I have to count safe, do the books, and order for the whole store. Whatever, I can make it work. When I come in, employee A is cooking food and says they don't want to cook all day. Employee B isn't trained in how to cook, and I have all the manager's duties to do right when I come in, so I have enough time to go through inventory and order what we need. We're also getting audited tomorrow and the next day, so I'm also going through and making sure everything is good, nothing out of date, everything is stocked, etc. Employee A comes up and yells at me that they're not supposed to be cooking food and I have to do it. I tell employee A that I have books and everything else to do, so I can't do food. Employee A then says whatever I'm telling manager and leaves. Says manager said they could go home, it's fine. I was like, bet. I was already having issues with the manager because I don't like the way they do it, and so many employees have asked me if I could talk to her, or they're going to quit if she doesn't adapt to a better managing style. I emailed my manager's boss and told him all the times the manager has left in the middle of the shift without clocking out. The number of times she has said she'll be late and then says last minute before the guys who take the money to the bank come in that they won't be in. Which causes me to have to rush during peak times to count the safe because I was told not to touch it, and they'll do it when they come in. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.